Hey people, big news in the world of color. Benjamin Moore has released their 2021 color trends, which includes their color of the year. I'm going to go through all 12 of these colors with you to help give you a peek at the future of interior design. I'm James from thepaintpeople.com with a very special video today. Once a year, Benjamin Moore releases a small curated collection of colors that represent the upcoming color trends, capped off by the color of the year. And that's the color which truly embodies the company's design vision for 2021. This year's collection is pretty interesting because although it has some neutrals, it more so showcases overly warm and cool colors. This tells me that, as I suspected, we may finally start to take a departure from the grayish color palette. Maybe. It's also curious to me that not many of Benjamin Moore's newer colors are featured here, as you won't see any CSP colors and only one Affinity Collection color. With that said though, let's start with that Affinity color called Silhouette, AF655. One of the darkest accent colors in this grouping, Silhouette is a dark charcoal gray that tends to have some red warmth underneath. It's just enough to give it an ever so slight taupe feel to it. The trend of reds is continued with the next color, Rosy Peach, 2089-20. A fiery terracotta coral rust color that has a balance of orange with some peachiness. It also has a bit of brown to prevent it from feeling overly bright. That being said, it'll still look bright in practical use, so I don't want to insinuate that it's muted in any way, because it's bold. Potter's Clay CC360 is more orange gold and also has a tiny bit less depth than the previous color. It feels sandy to me, and its strong dose of brown allows it to sit nicely amongst other warm tones, even when you use it throughout an entire room. The next color on this list has a similar darkness level, or LRV, but it's more of a typical neutral. Kingsport Gray HC86 is one of the few grayish colors within this color palette. It ends up looking more like a green-leaning taupe, based on the amount of gray tinting the warmer brown and gold undertones within it. Speaking of gold, our next two colors feature it prominently, and are actually quite the opposite of what the new color of the year is, but more on that one later on. Chestertown Buff HC9 is a no-holds-barred deep gold. It's technically a midtone, which means it will reflect a lot of light, but its deep use of yellow with a slight touch of pink keeps it vibrant and elegant. The other color using a bit of gold is one that I have admittedly never used. Beacon Hill Damask HC2 is a lighter green-leaning creamy color, which may scare people off due to the stigma that green can sometimes have in paint. But I think that this is a color that you need to use deliberately, because in certain color schemes, it can really provide you with something extremely fun, unique, and ultimately modern. Amazon Soil 2115-30 is the second darkest color here, although it's quite a bit different than the previously mentioned Silhouette. This color isn't so much of a slate gray as it is a dark and dusty mauve. The amount of gray that's incorporated within that reddish purple hue gives it an almost suede-like appearance, which looks really sleek. Now, the final 5 colors are probably the most usable ones, but I'm just most excited to talk about the color of the year at the end. But before I get to that, let's talk about Foggy Morning 2106-70. This off-white incorporates gray with some peachy pink, and to me, this is most likely the more tame version of last year's color of the year, First Light. It's not nearly as upfront with its pink aspect, and it definitely feels closer to a creamy gray. Muslin OC12 has got to be one of the quintessential beige colors that exist. I'm happy to see this color make a comeback because I remember recommending it to nearly everyone about 10 years ago. That is, until the more gray-leaning neutrals became way more popular. Trends aside, Muslin just seems to work with the entire warm color scheme, so if you have any browns, reds, creams, taupes, yellows, it just seems to work really nicely. As for the choice of white this year within this color palette, it's Atrium White, OC145. We do see a similarity between it and Foggy Morning because there are similar undertones in gray and that sort of peachy beige present within it. Atrium White is, of course, a much brighter color in comparison, and will therefore seem more like white on the walls or the trim, but it's definitely more peach leaning when you compare it to the Cloud Whites and the Simply Whites out there. We've seen a lot of warmth in the 2021 color trends palette, but now let's finish off with some cooler colors. I'm really pumped about these ones. One of my favorite cool grays has made it into this collection, and it's called Gray Cashmere 2138-60. It's a mid-tone gray, green, blue that will have a somewhat minty quality indoors and reacts quite nicely to warm light as well. Kind of gives it a seafoam green feel. Every time I've used this color in a bathroom, bedrooms, kitchens, it just always looks awesome. It sort of capitalizes on the popularity of coastal color schemes and turquoises. This finally brings us to the big ticket item, Benjamin Moore's 2021 Color of the Year. I'm excited to announce that it's firmly in the cooler section of colors, which I'm a huge fan of, but I also see it incorporated with a lot of warmer creams and natural woods, and of course, the other colors that we talked about today. This color is called Aegean Teal 2136-40. I hope I pronounced that correct.
Aegean.
Now this color on its own is a fantastic aquamarine that really seems to work well with cool colors. But what I love about it is it's being grouped with much warmer colors like golds and reds. Benjamin Moore is really empowering people to flex their creative muscle and put seemingly opposing colors together, creating an extremely dynamic complementary color scheme. I'm so excited to see all the different interior designs to come out next year. And I want to ask you guys, what do you think of these color trends? Do they pique your interest, or do you maybe find them underwhelming? Either way, let me know down below. If you enjoy this type of content, definitely subscribe and join our fellow paint people. It's a wonderful community that I'm so glad to be a part of because you guys are awesome. See you on the next one.